Welcome back to the stock portfolio update videos. Currently, my two stock portfolios sit at a combined value of $65,230. That's made up of the $39,645 in my stake portfolio and the $25,585 in my Vanguard portfolio. Since my last video, stocks again have raced up, and having a quick look through my holdings, you can see everything seems to be in the green. Currently, my stake portfolio is up 27%, which is around 5,600 USD, and my Vanguard portfolio has been tracking up slowly as well. Today I wanted to make this video of a bit of a portfolio update, plus speaking on my journey of growth for this year so far. Overall this year, I've added around $13,000 in value between my stake and Vanguard portfolios. A lot of that has been gains, and a chunk of that has also been deposits. So I just wanted to kind of go through my journey, how my holdings have been, when I've been investing, and just kind of what's been happening, because I've been doing these portfolio update videos now for years, it feels like. And since my portfolio was literally worth $13,000, and now I've added $13,000 and we're only 5 months into the year. So it's been nice to track, and I'm going to continue tracking it. But if you have a look at the S&P, it's up around 26% this year, and that's one of the reasons why my portfolio has been so strong last year and this year as well. Over the last 3 years, this is pretty much my time horizon for investing that's been happening. I did a lot of investing here whilst things were down. If you go through any of my old videos, there was times my portfolio was down nearly 20%. I had a lot of different holdings over the times, but it's taught me a lot, and I've been able to build bigger positions during this time, so that when you have times like last year and how this year started, you can make the most of it. Going through my holdings, it's pretty much all my staples, bearing two. So I'll start with my biggest, which is the one we were just on, and that's VOO. So VOO is the market tracking ETF for the S&P 500, and it pretty much is my biggest position by far. So it's 12,652 USD, which is 26 shares, just over. My average share price is just under 400, but my position is I just dollar cost average in. So that's why my return isn't as high. That's because I'm just constantly buying into it, because my goal is to keep this around 50% of my US portfolio value. So you'll see the Excel spreadsheets a little bit later. I've been able to do that, and yeah, so it means my actual percentage of my returns a bit lower, but I don't really mind, because again, this is long term for me. I'm up around 20%, or $2,094. The reason why I decided to keep 50% of my stake portfolio in an ETF is just because I don't think I'm some exceptional investor or anything. If I'm being honest, my analysis into stocks is probably subpar compared to a lot of people. So if I can track 50% of the market with this and hopefully get strong returns, then the remaining of my 50%, as long as I'm investing in quality companies, I can have it a bit more fun, make these videos and kind of pick stocks that I believe in long term, and just kind of see how it goes, while still having a big chunk of my exposure to the overall market, meaning hopefully my returns will still be strong. As mentioned earlier, the rest of my positions pretty much make up around 50% of my stock portfolio, and my biggest one is Microsoft. So Microsoft is sitting at $414 a share, and if you look at the last year alone, it's up 33%, and last 3 years it's up 67%. This is my biggest individual stock holding. So my ETFs are my biggest in VOO, and then my two in my Vanguard portfolio. But just in terms of an individual stock, Microsoft is my biggest. So I'm up 42% on this now, which is $1,384. And my average share price is $291. So quite good on that. Yeah, Apple was actually my biggest for a long time. But I continued to dollar cost average into Microsoft when it dipped. And as the stock just shot up and I put more money in, it just blew past Apple. And I currently only own 11.23 shares. So not the biggest when you compare it to other people's portfolio, but it is nice for me. And as I continue to grow these positions, even though I'm not a dividend investor, things like dividends continue to grow, and hopefully the snowball effect as it just continues to boost up my portfolio's returns. But yeah, this is one of the stocks that I did buy in a lot in 2022 and even 2023, because I think it's just got such a strong business model. It's one of my, you'd say almost like those forever stocks, where I just don't see Microsoft going anywhere. Like if I was to turn off my accounts and everything for 5 years and come back, Microsoft will still be strong. I'm sure I still would have got a good return on it, that type of thing. So it's one of my staples, and I plan on keeping it that way. Next biggest, as I mentioned before, is actually Apple. Apple was my biggest for a long time, but the stock's returns have been a little bit choppy, been up and down. So in the last 3 years, you can see it's up around 43%, and in the last year, it's only up around 5%. So I've tried to buy some of the dips. If you've seen some of my other videos, when Apple dropped down, I did purchase in, and it's had a nice little bounce back. But overall, I own around 18 shares in it, and I'm up around 28%. I was up nearly 40% at one point. But like I said, I've been trying to dollar cost average a little bit more into Apple, and that means my average share price has gone up, and the stock's obviously come down from its peaks in the 190s. So my average share price is around 142. And again, same with Microsoft. I'm probably a bit more bullish on Microsoft than Apple, but if I was to not look at this for 5 years, I guarantee when I come back, Apple will still be there, it will still be strong, the stock will still have done all right, and that's one of the reasons why those two big tech holdings are my biggest by a chunk. Next, you kind of have a range where you can see they're kind of in the $1,000 mark, and that is Costco, Google, and JP Morgan, pretty much. All these are kind of in the $1,000. Even McDonald's is a small position, but I'll get to that later. Google's one I actually bought into a bit extra recently as it dipped. I sold some of my JP Morgan shares because I had really good returns on that. And I wanted to invest it somewhere else. I did a whole video on this. Google at that time had the lowest PE ratio out of the Magnificent 7. So I decided to put some money in, and it's been quite good for me. You can see over the last month, it's up 8%. My average share price is $136, and I'm up 23%, which is around 315 USD. So obviously these positions aren't massive, but yeah, I was just trying to kind of pick stocks. I did used to own a lot more Google back in the day. I sold some of it, ended up buying back in. Long story, but yeah, that's one of my other bigger holdings. JP Morgan as well has been a staple for me. You can see I'm up 54% in JP Morgan, so that's one of the reasons why I cut some of I sold a chunk, because I think I was up even close to 60%. And it's been great for me. I'm up around 385. If I do need to sell more, I'll do it from JP Morgan potentially. I don't think there's anything wrong with the bank. I think it's a solid option going forward. The reason why I invested in JP Morgan was because back in the day, I just had tech stocks pretty much, and I wanted to diversify a little bit. That's when my VOO holding wasn't that big either. So I bought JP Morgan, and yeah, it's done really good for me. It's up 46% in the last year alone. Costco is also one of my staples. I kick myself for not having a bigger position in this over the time, but the stock is just, every time I feel like I want to buy into it, it just shoots up even more, and I feel like I can't justify the price anymore. So I earn $1,631 worth, and I'm up around 60%. And my average share price is under $500, and it's now trading close to $800. In the last year alone, it's up 60%. So yeah, it's been an absolute just weapon in terms of returns. I'm someone who owns a Costco membership. This is one of the ones that's helped me this year as well. If you look in the last 3 months, it's up nearly 9%. The last month alone, it's up 10%. So it's been a great return for me this year, and it's one of the reasons why I've had such a good return this year. But it's hard to justify buying in at the current price. And then the other small positions I have is Amazon and McDonald's, which I might sell out of, but more on that later because they're such small positions. VOO, like I said, is one of my biggest ETFs I hold. I actually can't buy VOO in my Vanguard Australia portfolio. So the two options I go with is VLC and VGS. So I get both exposure to Australian stocks and VGS for international shares. VGS was a lot smaller than VLC, but I've been growing that consistently, and now they're pretty much split 50-50, which was the goal. I use this account as almost like funding towards if I'm going to buy a house or retirement, whatever the case is. This portfolio is a lot more, if I really need money, I'll sell out of this. I know those two kind of contradict each other, but if I don't need the funds, I'm just going to let it here and sit. But I don't really do too much videos on this, and I've just been kind of growing this. It's now up to $250,000. My long-term goal with this account is to get it to $100,000, but I think that's years down the line. But it's nice to kind of diversify. I didn't want to have everything at stake, and this gives me great dividend payments as well. Like I said, I'm not a dividend investor, but every time I get one, I just reinvest it back into the portfolio. Going through my actual Excel spreadsheet, it's a little bit of an ugly one, but it does the job for me. You can see how the portfolios are kind of weighted. You can see VOO is pretty much half of my American portfolio, and then my Australian portfolio is split 50-50. And this is kind of gives you a bit of a graph of how things have been tracking. This was at the very start of the month, so obviously things have gone up again, but it just shows you the steadiness. I've been investing for a long time now, just trying to put money in through ups and downs, and it's nice to kind of see the green and kind of get your returns, because at times it can feel like you're just depositing money and you don't see anything. But when I actually take a look at these graphs, I can see my total returns and how strong it's been. Like for example, I'd had a quick look through some of my old videos. 3 weeks ago, the portfolio was worth $60,809. 2 months ago, it was worth $58,000. 3 months ago, it was worth $54,000. And at the start of the year, it was worth $52,000. So now to be sitting at where it's over $65,000 just has been positive, and I've just been able to keep growing it, even with other life expenses, like I've had to pay for some holidays and stuff like that. So realistically, I could have even got it closer to 70, but you have to live as well. Speaking of dividends, I track this on here as well, and you can see that's slowly getting bigger and bigger, and it's nice just being able to reinvest these dividends, because as I continue to track these, hopefully they just keep trading up. My goal for my Vanguard portfolio was to get to over $1,000 in dividends this year, which I will. And then stake portfolio, anything I get, I just reinvest. I don't really care what it is. It's all just a bit of extra money at the end of the day. But overall, how I've kind of gained this year was kind of the hard work of previous years, just kind of building those positions. And now when you have a good year, you can kind of make the most of it. Again, you should never get too high on the highs and too low on the lows, because as I've said prior, I was down 20% at some point, and I was still holding some of the companies I'm holding now. You need to kind of be prepared for if things were to trade down. And now that my portfolio gets bigger, obviously trading each day when stuff changes a little bit, it's worth a lot more money. So I just kind of try to stay away from it unless I'm doing the videos, and just take a bit more of a long-term approach and kind of outlook on things. But that was kind of an update for now. I'll do another updates going forward. And overall, the goal is still to get this to around 80 to 85,000 before the end of the year. And I think I'm heading on a decent track. So that's all for now. Cheers.